Right, everybody, great to see you all. Great to be seen, I guess. And as they say in Naples, Florida, it's better to be seen than viewed because you're viewed in a coffin. But anyway, Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
You never know what you're gonna hear. Nour, great to see you. How you been?
Always good to see you, my friend.
Excellent. We're honored to have Nour with us today. He's been busy helping out a bunch of clients the last few weeks. And Sean, looks as you have some Buffalo Bills there in the background.
I am diehard Bills Mafia. So even though I live in Florida, but definitely Bills fan through and through.
All right, there you go. All right. Well, everybody, very excited for episode number 83 of Tech Sales Insights, brought to you by Sales Community. If you want to learn more, sell more, Tucker will post. We've got a June free year membership special going on. So salescommunity.com/June free. And definitely psyched to have Sean Foster, who's the CRO of Anomali, has only been there since January of this year. So I guess you're well through your 90-day plan. Our topic today is operationalizing sales. Really great topic. And we've got our sponsor is Gong, fantastic revenue intelligence platform company. They're a gold sponsor of Sales Community. And Sean is a great customer and is going to be giving us some highlights. They started off kind of, I'll say, listening in on conversations, have leveraged AI to help for coaching and feedback, and now are kind of expanding into a bunch of other go-to-market areas. And they had a fantastic virtual event yesterday called Celebrate. So if anybody did not see that, definitely recommend that you check that out. So unlike some of the guests, Sean and I only recently met. I've actually have known of each other for a long time, and certainly has a fantastic reputation. Is known for building winning teams, winning sales teams that do well, has always leveraged the ecosystem, has definitely respected a relationship with customers and partners, actually lives in Tampa, and grew up in Louisiana. So by default is a LSU fan. So try not to hold that against him. As some of you know, I am a big Alabama fan, and Nour's son Justice is about to go to Georgia. So we got a whole SEC rivalry going on here. Most importantly, though, he's a great husband and great father of two girls, 10 and 12. And Sean, I was exchanging notes with Sue Barsimian the other day, who we both think very highly of. And her summary was, Sean is great. So I don't think you can get any better than that. So let's dive in here. Maybe tell us a little bit about your professional background.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro. That's great. And at least you got all my sports teams down, so I appreciate that. That's probably most important. But yeah, look, I really grew up in technology. I started, my first sales job really back in like 1998, and spent a year in Boston, actually, Randy, working for a company called Percussion Software. And I'd say back then it was really back in the day where I call it a sweatshop. It was a line of phones and phone books, and you were making those calls and learning the ropes the hard way. But did that for about a year and a half, and then moved on to Symantec and got into cybersecurity in '99. I spent 15 years at Symantec, and really cut my teeth there and moved up through the ranks. Left as the vice president of the West, even though I was in Florida. It's a longer story, maybe for another episode. But went over to Hewlett Packard. That's where I did meet Sue Barsimian, but I went in as America's leader running security sales. Did that for a year, then was moved into the global role and did that for the last couple of years until we sold that business to Micro Focus. And then decided to get out of the big company and try my hand in startup world. So spent some time as a CRO at ForcePoint. I was at a company called Sienna Group, where I was there for a year. We sold that company to ConnectWise. I then spent 3 years at IronNet, took that company public, and then now I'm at Anomali, and hoping to do the same thing here. But look, it's been a good run. Had a lot of great experiences, been a lot of great people, along the way, and the great thing about sales, and especially in cyber, it's always changing. You're always learning something new. Nothing stays the same every day. So it's been a good run for me.
Sean, that's a fantastic background. Can you tell us a little about Anomaly? What do you guys do? Who do you sell to? Let's start there.
Yeah, we're really a big data player rooted in intelligence. And a lot of people know us. We're only an 8-year-old company. Kind of grew up through a threat intelligence side of things, but we've moved on to be really a big data player, like I said, rooted in intelligence. And so we take, whatever telemetry you have, we don't care, we're vendor agnostic. So whether it's Splunk or any of your EDR vendors or McAfee or Symantec, whatever it may be, and match that up against our global repository threat intelligence. We have the largest, repository threat intelligence out there, and we show you gaps in your environment, things that you haven't seen before. So, I'd say the 3 things I always tell customers we do. We amplify visibility of what you already own. We enrich the context that you have to give you insights into that data, and then by doing that, we stop the attackers. And we do use the call sign of XDR. So I thought we are one of the few XDR players out there. I just got back from RSA, and I'd say we're one of several hundred, if not thousand, of XDR players out there now. So everyone thinks about it differently, but we are really the X in XDR. It's really the threat intelligence side of things that make us go and make us different.
That's awesome. So how about ICP customers? How do you go to market?
Yeah, again, given what I just said, typically you have to be somewhat of a mature organization or government organization for that matter. So you need to have a SOC, you need to have a SIM, typically to consume something like us. So our ICP here is really 5,000 employees and $1 billion in revenue. That's really a good place to start. We'll make a few exceptions there, certainly on the employee count, given that they're a mature security organization. But you need to, basically you have to have a, somewhat of a mature organization consume, something like us or any XDR vendor for that matter.
And any customers you can mention, and also how about who do you compete with in that XDR space? Who are the bigger ones you see in your deals?
Yeah, well, like I said, I would say the usual suspects would be like a Palo Alto or a CrowdStrike or something like that until RSA. And then it seems like everybody is in XDR these days. So it seems like a lot more vendors are out there. So, but those are typically the players that we see out there and what we're trying to do. But look, we again, given what I just said, our ICP, we have over 500 customers globally. They're all household names. So Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley. Giving you guys are East Coast. I'm giving you all the East Coast names there.
Great names, and certainly tough accounts to sell to.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely big. I'll save the government by name, but a lot of U.S. government, a lot of overseas government that we do as well. In this space. So we're very fortunate. Again, we do a lot of reference selling as well, and so great news is that a lot of these customers are more than happy to personally, give us references.
That's fantastic. How about size of the organization and tell us a little about the sales team?
Yeah, so we're an 8-year-old company, about 300 people company wide. I own probably a third of the organization, so I have sales engineers, channel, customer success. So again, about 100 plus in that group. We have about 35 sellers globally. 20 sales engineers, another 30 or so customer success, technical support, things along those lines. So pretty decent organization. We're in all 3 theaters, meaning US, EMEA, APJ, and growing all 3 theaters, pretty healthily as well.
The sales community is rich with some really sharp talent, and talent seems to be an agenda for every CRO we meet. What would you say in your recruiting pitch? How would you position Anomaly as a place I'd want to come join?
Yeah, I think, look, it depends who I'm talking to, right? And at what level I'm talking to. But let's just say it's your average seller. But again, if you want to make money, if that's your number one goal, like a lot of sellers are, certainly early on in their career, that's the number one thing. We have a very, very rich comp plan here. My CEO is very pro sales. My CFO, believe it or not, is very pro sales. And so I was really surprised that I'd love to say that I created this great comp plan, but I inherited it. So you can make a lot of money here by, of course, making it, blowing out your number. There is no cap that we have, but we also do a lot of bonuses around competitive takeouts and things like that. Now, if you're maybe a little bit further in your career, it's like, hey, money's great, it always is, but maybe there's a little bit more to what you're trying to do. We solve real world problems, right? We solve customer issues that they're having out there. And one of the things that drew me here, and if you're a security professional, hopefully you can appreciate that, is, how are we actually going to finally beat the adversaries? And I think it's working together, right? And something I call collective defense. We call it trusted circles, here at Anomali, where working together, anonymously sharing that information, attacker information or threat information, anonymously, so we can get ahead and work together to beat the adversary. And so truly trying to make the world somewhat of a safer place. And as corny as that may sound, it's truly what I came here for, because I felt like the technology was that far ahead, and I had some experience that in my previous life. And so, but I really did admire the technology and what they could do here, as far as, like I said, to try to put an end to, or at least to keep up with the adversaries that are out there, if not get ahead of them.
I coach a lot of leaders to fundamentally focus on two things: brand, be that brand advocate, be that brand ambassador, and then culture. How would you describe the Anomaly culture?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think everyone is here to try to win, right? Like, given that you're only 300 people and 300 people strong, everybody's moving in the same direction, which is great. Our executive team down are on the same page, working together. There's no silos or fiefdoms, if you will. And it's like, look, what are we doing to win? And at the tip of the spear are always our customers, which is great, because I've worked in other organizations that may be a little more product centric or engineering centric, and you forget what's most important, right? No one cares how cool your technology is if you're not solving the customer problems, taking care of them. Nothing else matters, and that's something that we take to heart here.
Wow, that's great. So the title topic that you pick, I love, operationalizing sales. Before we get into that, my theory from what I hear and see is that if you go back 10, 15 years ago, kind of being CROs, nobody really cared about, or from a VP of sales, I guess at the time, kind of your operational skills. But now I would argue that's probably a really important piece in terms of being selected for these roles. Did that come up at all in your interview process?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think especially when I'm interviewing leaders, I ask them about their background and again, how do they scale, and how do they get what they want out of their individual contributors. And I'm listening for things like, do they have a plan? Do they have a process? Or is it, hey, go out and just do a bunch of deals and come back to me? And sometimes you can coach that into people, that hey, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's one way ways to grow. But I'm always listening for those things in leaders, that they have that mindset that there is a process in place. And if everyone's got on that same page what that process is, you can tend to grow and scale a lot faster, which again, in this world, in the startup world that I'm in, it's all about speed and scale.
Totally. And Timothy, thanks so much for asking. He says, hey, are you guys answering questions? Absolutely. Sorry, I usually mention that in the beginning. So you can see us or hear us. We cannot see you, but certainly feel free to, anybody post any comments and post any questions. We have Tucker behind the scenes who does a great job pulling those up. So don't feel worried about kind of having to do it in between breaks, whatever, just pop them up there and we'll kind of pivot over to you accordingly. So anyway, Sean, back to the title topic, operationalizing sales. Kind of what are some key pillars in that? Yeah,
so there's really four things that I think about. Again, growing up through the ranks, first, you got to have talented and engaged employees. And it has to be both. It has to be both talented and engaged in what you're trying to do. That's kind of pillar one. Two is customer and partner loyalty, right? How do you gain loyalty with your customers and then your partners if you are in a partner community? The third thing being operational excellence, right? What are those things that are the must-haves, and how do you operationalize it? And I think if you do those three things, the fourth thing being fourth pillar being business results. The business results will come if you do those first three things really well. And so that's where I always start. Again, more speaking to the leadership community out there and working in my organization and what I've seen successful in other, big organizations or small organizations, doing those things well, the business results will come and it'll be more predictable and repeatable.
Great. So your first one is talented and engaged employees. It may sound silly, but in terms of, making sure that they're talented, any kind of one or two nuggets that you do in terms of the interview process or finding out to make sure they're talented?
Sure. There's a couple of things, right? I'd love to say that I've never had a bad hire, but I'd be lying to you guys. I think everyone has had their moments of bad hires. You just don't know. So I always like to get a lot of fingerprints on, especially the key hires out there. So I've used in the past a panel process. So if you narrow it down, let's say you're interviewing 10, 15 people for a single job, you narrow it down to a top 3, you bring those folks into a panel process and you have a cross-functional group, right? So if I'm hiring, let's just say an East Coast, leader, I may bring my channel leader, my head of sales ops, my head of HR, product or SE leader, and the 4 or 5 of us will, watch this person or maybe the finalists, 2 or 3 people, give a presentation, how they present. I was there, they own the room, that they have that presence about them, which is so key. That's hard to kind of get on a one-on-one interview sometimes. And then score and have a scorecard. And so, there's somewhat subjective, but there also, some substance in that as well. You actually have a score at the end. So that's some way, again, if I have a key hire, I want to make sure I have that panel process and that cross-functional group with me.
Great. And in terms of engagement, I guess kind of 2 parts. Are you face-to-face versus virtual? And, how do you really, get that engagement level?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to answer that maybe a couple different ways. Look, I think when it comes to employee engagement, and I don't care if they're, a vice president or a BDR, I think you have to take interest in them personally first, right? And that's so important. Do you have an individual development plan for those folks that are in your organization? Do you care about what they do? Do you ask them questions before you get into, tell me about the deal or tell me about a forecast? How was your weekend, right? How was the the soccer game this weekend with your kids, whatever like that. I think just taking those extra few minutes, you've shown a personal interest in them, and in turn, I feel like if you do that, people are more willing to get on board with what you're trying to do and be more engaged in what you're trying to do. So that's one way I answer that question, Randy. The second thing is, and maybe for some other leaders that have changed roles like I did during COVID, I've been in this job 6 months. I struggled coming in here the first 4 months or so of winning the hearts and minds. Like I'm kind of hearts and minds person, right? I mean, I couldn't get out, and we're a California company, so we're very conservative, even though I live in Florida, about getting out in front of, customers and partners and our own people, grouping, getting together as a group. And, as hard as I try to do it over Zoom, it just doesn't translate. It's a little too sterile. So I was able to convince, and thank goodness I have a great CEO and head of HR that allowed me to do a sales kickoff in person at the beginning of May, and that changed everything for us, right? That really, getting in person, getting in a room, and yes, it's a sales kickoff, and we did the normal trainings and things like that. But I felt like then everybody was on board, and everyone was engaged, and we spent a lot of time, social time as well, maybe more than you normally would in a SCO. And that made a difference. And I think we're seeing now things really, really move in the right direction.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And Nour has told me previously, there's a Gallup poll, I believe, that the number one reason most employees leave is that they don't feel like they belong. And he's also told me about McKinsey, who says belonging and internal relationships are critical to retaining exceptional talent. And third nugget might be, actually, I have this blog or not blog, but a LinkedIn post I do every week, which is I might be old school, and we start out doing one, but I've got such a backlog. Now we might be 2 or 3. I did one this morning talking about, that you really work for your team. It's not a pyramid with you at the top. It's kind of a pyramid that goes, goes the other way, right? So, you work for everybody else. So I know you breathe that for sure. So we have Peter Bell has a great question that feeds into the second one, talking about customer and partner loyalty. Thanks, Peter. He says, great conversation. How do you measure customer loyalty, Sean?
Yeah, it is a great question. And, again, back in the day, again, I'm probably, maybe a little older than some folks out there in this role, but, we do customer QBRs, right? And we would do that, and we would do in-person QBRs, and make sure that, hey, this is why you bought our solution, whatever that was, and here's the problems that we were solving. Did we do that? And how well did we do that? Well, now you have a whole department called customer success, right? That does that, and there's a lot of tools like Gainsight and others that we employ here that does a lot of that for you, right? So you're obviously getting a customer sat score, but if you're at a company that that either sells seats or sells multiple products, I think you gain loyalty. Are people buying more from you? Your current customer base, how much upsell are you able to do with those customers? Is one nugget right there. How many cross-functional cross-selling can you do with additional products? And then the third thing being references. I mean, are they willing to be a reference for you? And I mean, not a public reference where they're doing a video on your website, because a lot of times that gets stopped by legal, and they're legal, and it's a lot of hoops and red tape to jump through. But person to person, are they saying, hey, I believe in what you do. You guys have treated me right. I'm willing to speak, put my name out there on your behalf on a phone call for you, Sean. And that makes the difference. And I think that's how we've measured here.
Excellent. So you never know. You might be getting that ask from Gainsight. And then I know later on we're talking about Gong. So I'm just going to pivot here to a question from Timothy. Thanks, Timothy. He says, I have my own small business where I fix and sell salvaged cars. Congratulations. I want to get into tech sales, an idea how to make the transition. Seems like putting in an application on job boards doesn't work in recent times. As Jesse says, fantastic question. A couple things. You can get a free membership to Sales Community. So I do salescommunity.com/June free. And in there, you certainly find a lot of great content. So to be honest, if I were as a tech sales leader, I'd definitely take a chance on somebody with your DNA, because I'm sure selling salvage cars is a heck of a lot harder than selling any tech thing, but you probably just need to get kind of honed up a little bit. I'd also just go online and see about interview best practices, so that way you have a good thought process around kind of how to interview, what to do. By the way, in Sales Community, you can do kind of topic sort on all these topics. And as well, feel free to reach out to me if you want to send me a kind of cover resume saying, I saw you in the podcast, you offered to help, and probably something we can do to kind of get that posted on LinkedIn and within Sales Community. So Timothy, hopefully that helps. Sean, any other suggestions that you have for him?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you just need a chance, right? And again, before I got into tech sales, if you heard the beginning of this podcast, even though it was a 100 call a day type of job, which you're probably going to have to do, and that's okay because you earn your stripes. I was working for Saucony running shoes. Right? I was my first job out of college. I was selling shoes. So maybe I'm the Al Bundy of software now, but that's it doesn't matter where you start, it's kind of where you finish, right? And so I think somebody just gave me a chance, and I think that's all you need is a chance, and show that you're willing to work hard, have great integrity, and willing to learn, and you can show those things. I think you can do great things here.
That's great. Whatever happened to Saucony? Are they still around, or they got purchased by somebody?
They got bought by Stride, right? Yeah, back in the day. I was only there for a little over a year, but yeah, they got bought by Stride, right, which I believe was in Boston as well. But that was up on the North Shore, Randy, where I worked up there in Peabody, Mass.
There you go, Peabody.
Small
awesome.
world.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
Sean, one of the comments that I heard years ago that stuck with me is every referral is a recommendation. So back to your customer and channel loyalty comment, if they're not referring you, if they're not making an introduction on your behalf or stepping up and saying, I'm willing to be a reference, you should wonder, why is that? And are you really delivering value for their business? So that comment resonated with me. Thanks for mentioning that. You mentioned love to get, in-person get together. You had an SKO about a month or so ago. Give us the highlight. How was that like, getting people back together again?
Yeah.
What really resonated with you and the team from the SKO?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was in Vegas, so I'll put that out there. We did it off the strip. We did it at the JW Marriott, which was a great property. But like I said, I was a lot of internal selling on my part to make that go. And so when we did get the green light, we only had 5 weeks to prepare. And any of you guys have ever put on an SKO, you normally have 4 to 5 months that you're preparing and planning and making sure you know what you're going to say. And it was like, hey, we're going. Let's make this happen. We all knew we needed to get it done, but we had half the time less than half the time to prepare for it. But it worked out great. Again, we had a lot of time that was interaction time, but we got to work as well. We got to a point where we were doing a lot of training. Again, I'm old school a little bit as well, and so we did a lot of role playing. So hey, here are the 2 sales plays we're running. Right, we're running a sales play. It's going to be a cross sell play with our current customers. We're also going to run a net new sales play. So let's get in groups, cross functionally, and all those teams I mentioned before were there. So sales, SEs, channel, customer success, and we just split everybody up in round tables and did role playing. We had the scenarios on the tables, and we spent 3-4 hours every afternoon doing that and just practicing, right? And so I think you got to practice your craft and get asked questions that a normal prospect would ask you, and be able to respond and be audible ready on that kind of stuff. So it worked out great, and I feel a lot more confident. I think the team feels a lot more confident getting out in front of prospects now after being an SKO.
Yeah, Seidel and I are big believers in SKO. We've spent several together, and there's nothing as rich as just reconnecting as human beings and kind of seeing each other and getting the team not just excited and rah, but really, giving them the tools and the resources to go tackle, the next year. So that's great. And it's great to see more CROs putting SKOs in person. You also were at RSA last week. How did that go? And give us a highlight from RSA for you and Anomali.
Yeah, it was great. We had a great booth, we had a great location. For a company of our size, like I said, I thought we showed up in a big way. The booth was packed, and it wasn't just packed from, of course, prospects, things like that, but we had a great little area where we were doing demos, and then we had some of our partners, some of the feed vendor partners that we have out there, doing some demos as well, and attracted a really big crowd for us. So we got a lot of great leads from the show, but we also had a lot of in-person meetings. So over to the side that we had a meeting area, and so myself, my CEO and chief product officer, and our founder just had meetings rolling in and out of there. So we were inundated there with customer and partner meetings, which was great. Look, I felt like everybody was the same way. Even customers who may have not gone in the last 5 or 7 years were like, "Hey, I'm going back. I'm going to go see what that's all about." And it was great to see people back in person. Again, I've been fortunate enough in my career since '99. I've always been in cybersecurity. So for me, it's like a homecoming. You see a lot of people there that you know and growing up and hearing some great stories back in the day that maybe you don't remember. So that part of it, was really good as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it was kind of missed by me, but a lot of these industry events where there's kind of great CROs like you, where planning some get-togethers going forward, I think could be worthwhile. Anyway, all right, we have Luke. Looks like he is your rep at Gong, so good that he's on the ball here. So he's looking forward to meeting and working with you. So Luke, I already got in the prep session. Sean said he'd be happy to get with you, but obviously you got to make sure you're adding value, not just getting with him to report the news, but hopefully help him make the news. Anyway, you mentioned customer loyalty, customer retention, et cetera. Given the current macroeconomic climate, how are you thinking about how this is impacting your sales process and go-to-market teams? Do you have a strategy in place, or are you giving your team any recommendations or guidance on how to get in front of these signals to mitigate risk/churn?
Yeah,
something of a leading question, but go ahead.
It is all right. But Luke, I respect that and I appreciate it. It's a great question, and I think as business professionals, I won't even say sales professionals, but business professionals, we need to understand what's going on in the world today. We need to understand what's happening with inflation. We need to understand what's happening, with the conflict in Ukraine and things along those lines, and how that affects not only us, but more important, how does that affect our customers, right? And what are they thinking about? And so if you think about the economy and where it is right now, depending on what vertical you might be calling on, or multiple verticals, what are you doing then to potentially create efficiencies for them, right? So how do you potentially save them money or give them time back? And a lot of times, again, we'll think about, you got to have this because it's such a cool technology. Well, cool doesn't sell most of the time anyway, but cool certainly doesn't sell when it's a downturn in the economy, right? And so you need to be talking business and dollars and cents, and be thinking about selling outside of the IT team and selling into more of the CFO or business unit at that point, of how you can help them. And so I think, what my advice to the sales team, I've already given it, is that, guys, we got to be thinking about this, right? And how do we potentially, create more efficiencies for our customers or save them money, And so that's definitely something, Luke, that, I would put towards your organization as well. But it's what we're doing here at Anomaly.
Awesome. Thanks. And from Jesse, we have Sean. Congrats on all the success, IronNet, Anomaly, etc. Question: should SDRs call direct mobiles, cell numbers? What are some of your limits where performance and brand are at a conflict? SMS, FaceTime, etc. So I think the high level would be kind of your philosophy on texting or cold calling people's cells.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's anything against it. It's kind of like, I live in Florida. I like to fish. I like to fish where the fish are, right? And I would say the same thing. I mean, look, if you know someone's mobile phone, and can make that call, then make that call. I think if you get that audience, if that person answers, I think you need to be ready, audible ready about what you're going to say. It's always better to have a warm introduction. Let me start there. I should have started there. Always better to have a warm introduction if you can. But if you can't, look, understand that there's other ways to get to those individuals. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you're being a professional, right? And you're not being a nuisance, and calling someone, 10 times a day and things like that. I don't think that works. I think that maybe that is old school a little bit, when people used to sit by their phones, right? And it was their desk phone, though. It wasn't their mobile phone. And so, have some respect on that front.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got, there you go. So Jesse says, Luke's awesome. Looks like we have a smiley face from Luke. Hey, Luke, if you want some brownie points with your marketing team, maybe you can post there the Celebrate event link from yesterday. God forbid. Anyway. And then Jesse says, that could be another, it might be old school, but if you're going to get thousands of views on a podcast that you're sponsoring, maybe you want to include the link. Anyway, Jesse says, I know Luke, he's a good dude. Highly recommend him and Gong. And then Jesse also says something about Lauren's sermon. So sorry, not sure what the context is there, Jesse. But Nour?
Yeah. So Sean, one of the things, again, philosophically, Randy and I both deeply believe in, is that we're all products of the advice we take. So as you come up through the ranks and really growing and maturing as a sales leader, are there some examples of sales leaders that you respect, that really model the leadership traits, the behaviors, the brand, and how they show up, that you admire, you want to try to adapt in your own style?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really, really fortunate in my career, and I'll definitely have a couple of sales leader examples, but early on, I would say, and I'll start with a CEO that I had the fortune to work under. When I was at Symantec, our CEO at the time was John Thompson, right? So if any of you guys know John Thompson out there,
Great,
yeah, and he just retired as the chairman of the board of Microsoft, but he grew up in Florida, and so here I am, a new rep in Florida, trying to make my way, and then he would come back to see his father and family. And so he would, like CEO would, hey, I'm coming on Thursday, have a bunch of meetings ready for me to go. And I would do my best to do that. But that time in the car going from meeting to meeting, what I really took from him was that, I was nobody, right? And we were a fairly big organization even back then. But he treated me just like he was treating the CEOs that he was meeting with, or the CISOs that he was meeting with. It was no different, right? And I felt like a guy in that stature, and that certainly he had a lot of success even before he came to Symantec. Treat me just every bit with the same amount of respect and dignity that he treated the CEOs we were meeting with. Told me a lot about him as a person, but also how I wanted to be, right? And I wanted to be that person. If I ever got to that level, I wanted to be able to treat people, the same way as well. And so that's one. John Thompson had a big impact on me. And he's a legend certainly in this field. Down to the sales community, I had a lot of great sales leaders. When I started to the topic of this podcast being operationalizing sales, that really started when I started working for a guy named Bill Welsh. Bill Welsh. Worked with him at Symantec. He went on to Zscaler and did great things, took them public. I worked for him again in IronNet. But operationalizing sales is really where that came from, right? And the nuggets that you have to have predictable and repeatable results, and here's a process to get there. That's where I started kind of honing those skills. The other thing that he would say that I loved, which I didn't do a great job of growing up in the ranks, was give people the benefit of the doubt. I've been married 22 years, but you mentioned I have a 10 and 12-year-old. So there was 10 years there I didn't have children. And I didn't give people the benefit of the doubt what was going on in their personal life and home life and children. And now that I'm right in the thick of things, I realize just, how important that is, and how time consuming that is as well. And that work's not the most important thing out there, right? Family's the most important thing. And so he was the one that taught me that, give people the benefit of the doubt always. So that was an important nugget, growing up. Sue Barsamian, you mentioned Randy at the beginning of this. Look, Sue says I'm great. I mean, I don't. Words don't describe how I feel about Sue and how great she is, and the person that she is, and the leader that she is. And I think my respect from her, and this is, that when I met Sue, I was out the door. I was leaving the company. I was at HP. I was going to move on because we had some changes, and she asked me to stay and take over this global role. Again, at that point, I'd already been in security for, 15, 17 years, something like that. Sue had never been in security, and she was going to lead the business unit of security. And I was like, what am I going to learn here? And she said, hey, just give me a chance. And she worked at it. She was great. By the end of it, didn't take long at all. I would say 3 months, maybe 6 months. She was as fluent, if much better probably at the end, about how fluent she was in security. She was always great with partners and customers and things like that. But just how fast that she could come up to speed. Security is not an easy thing to learn. Right? It's a big industry, and how well she did that. And to me, it just, again, inspired me that, look, you're never too old to learn new tricks. You're never too old to learn new things or learn new industries. And it gave me kind of a new lease on life as well, that I could go on and do different things. And that's really kind of inspired me to go into the startup world, because it was something I thought that, hey, it's a young man's game. I'm too old for that. She really inspired me on that front. So again, I've been very fortunate to have great leaders, and I'm sorry for the long answer, but it's something that it's an important question.
There was a lot of great nuggets in there. That was awesome.
Yeah, really, really good. And remember, Sue, it's kind of like hopefully it's a compliment, but it's kind of a iron fist and a kind of silver glove. She just has such a nice way about her. And, talking about getting to yes, over I don't say, not that I'm a bull in China shop, or maybe I grew up a bit, but anyway, she just has such a nice way about her. She can just get yes from you, on anything. And I walk out what I just agree to, why'd I do it? But yes, but certainly a fantastic leader, very engaging, very, very helpful for sure. And actually overlapped with Bill also at HP. Never had the opportunity with John, but Bill's certainly great. So we have a couple other nuggets here. So from Lauren, she says, excited to be here. What are you doing to get more women in sales? What are your DEI focuses? So this kind of whole topic with women and diversity, what I think, especially around women, is it really needs to go back to the university. So you can certainly support women that are in sales now, but unfortunately, it's still such a small population. I think a lot of the efforts need to go back to, not that everybody has to go to college. If you don't go to college, no problem. Certainly sales can still be a great career, but there's a lot of colleges that have sales programs. So kind of reach out to them, but still it's, so unfortunate that the minority of, whatever hundreds of schools, if there's 1,000 strong schools in the country, the number of them that actually have sales programs, I looked last year, it might be like, 30, if that. I mean, why aren't there more? So to me, that's, I think really the primary fix that really needs to happen. Sean, do you have any other perspectives?
Yeah, I think, for every one, female resume, I get 10, male resumes, right? And so I think I'm just dovetailing what you said. I think that, I'd love to encourage, and again, I have 2 girls, to get into sales and get into tech sales and get into security sales, as far as I'm concerned, on my end, because I don't think there's just enough women out there that are in sales that would be great at it, right? And so I'd love to have more on my team. I can tell you that much right now. And my HR business partner and I, we talk about that on a regular basis, and we're working towards that. But again, I'd love to just get more opportunities and have more chances to interview, more women in tech, for sure.
Totally. Great point, Lauren. So what's your perspective on the importance of kind of, I guess it used to be called sales ops previously, now revops, kind of going forward, and the necessity there?
Yeah, a great question. And again, given the topic of this podcast, I can't do what I do without having someone measure, right? So what gets measured gets done. Let's just be clear about that. You can tell a sales organization or a CS organization, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. But if you're not measuring it, it's not going to happen, right? On a regular basis. So I do have a head of revenue operations, Rebecca, and she's fantastic. And she's come in and really, again, operationalize what I want, right? Which is, there's things that we're going to measure. And one of the pillars that I mentioned earlier, being operational excellence. So what are we requiring in Salesforce.com? You have to update on a weekly basis. You have to update your next steps to win. Your forecast accuracy. What does that need to look like? How much pipeline do you need to generate on a weekly basis? Well, you can say all those things, but again, if you're not measuring it and putting it in lights, and so people are seeing that, that's something that we're going to work on and get better on every single week, falls through the cracks. And so you have to have that revenue operations partner there that pulls that together. So that's one thing, Randy. I think the other thing is the insights, right? We're running so hard these days, and even worse now in the COVID era with Zoom. I'm sure your calendar is like mine. It's just stacked with meetings back to back to back. And, you finally catch up on email at 7 or 8 o'clock at night or something like that. But you need someone that's looking at the data on a regular basis and bringing that data and saying, hey, here's some thoughts I have on the data. Here's wins, losses. Here's our pipeline metrics. Here's things like that are driving, pockets of brilliance in the organization. And they can, you get a real talented person in that organization. They can bring you things that you can start making decisions on, and makes a big difference in the company, in a short period of time. So
that's great. And yeah, awesome. And then on the kind of sales tool side, I know you mentioned Gong, Gainsight, and some others. So maybe kind of give kind of your commercial maybe on Gong, for what you know or what you use.
Yeah, we use Gong primarily in our customer success organization. So when they're doing their QBRs or their monthly reviews, how well are we supporting the organization? And the way we kind of operationalize it here, if there was something that, hey, was a great nugget or a bad nugget for that matter, of, hey, this is, we're having challenges and here's what it is, but I wasn't able to be on the call, or our chief product officer wasn't able to call, that can be quickly, sent the recording and say, hey, look at minute, 557, right? And we can quickly hear exactly from the customer's point of view, in context, and it's not sugar-coated by the team in any other way about really what's going on. So that's how we primarily use Gong here, but it's an effective tool for us.
That's great. And then you mentioned customer success, but then you also have Gainsight, right?
Yep. Yeah, we use Gainsight. Nick Mehta is a great CEO, and I love that guy. But a great tool as well in Gainsight. And so again, they operationalize everything in customer success through Gainsight. Again, sales, we use Salesforce.com, but Gainsight obviously maps right into that and integrates with it. So we bring those two tools together. And what I would say in the sales organization and SE organizations, primarily Salesforce.com, customer success, Gainsight, but we marry those two together so we have a seamless operation there.
Awesome. And then any other kind of sales tools that you use?
Those are primarily the ones. I'm sure there's others I'm forgetting. I've been successful in the past with Sales Loft when it comes to the BDR function. I know someone had mentioned that before. So, their cadences that they do, I think are pretty good. I've used Drift in the past, from the website standpoint, and I think that's that's a pretty good tool to do some self-sufficient type of activity on websites. But there's probably no tool I haven't used at some point in time, but those are primarily the ones that we use here.
Awesome. And Lauren asked a great question. Are you focusing on working with agencies who focus on these efforts? 100 qualified women who are eager and vetted would love to help. So Lauren, I would just go in sales community. Apologize, I don't know all the members, but as I said before, if you want a free membership, you can just do salescommunity.com/June free, and you can just post. I would just post in there and say, look, I've got 100 qualified women. If anybody's interested, just ping me. So we try not to have a lot of solicitations within sales community, but I think what you mentioned is unique and would be a great way to do it. And if you also post that on LinkedIn and tag me, I'd be happy to repost it, which should help with your visibility. So thanks for that, Lauren.
Perfect. So Sean, again, going back to your background and what you've seen and what you've done over the years, I think the three of us could agree sales is absolutely changing. It's evolving. I'd love your perspective on how have you observed the sales function, tech sales predominantly function, changing, evolving, and let's talk about some of those nuances.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things, right? There's time that has changed over time, but then I think COVID is another huge thing which changed, right? And so let's talk about the first one. Over time, let's say over the last 10 years, David, right, that you sold a lot on relationship, and a lot of knowing people, and you could do a steak dinner around a golf or whatever it may be, and that went a long way. Typically, if all things were equal. There's so many more people now involved in the sales process where that may have just been a CIO or a CISO or somebody like that you were selling to, and could pretty much make some of those decisions on their own. Now that that doesn't happen anymore. There's so many more people that have to be part of the buying process, whether it's a CFO or it's a purchasing agent or contract specialist. And so, those types of things don't work anymore. You truly have to show value. Your product truly has to show value and create value for the organization. And so I think that's how it's changed. If you can't articulate, if you're a seller and you can't articulate the value of your solution and how you've helped other companies out there, you can do all the glad handing golf rounds in the world. It's never going to change. You're never going to get that deal. You're going to end up having a golf buddy, And so I think that's how it's changed maybe in the last 10 years. COVID's changed, right? Again, I'm a people person. I love to be out there and I love to shake hands and get to know people. And I think it matters. And you still have to show value, of course. But when COVID hit, I was at a different organization, and we said, hey, everyone is inside sales now. I don't care how long you've been doing this. I don't care how much ego you have. You're an inside seller. We were going to act as inside sellers, and we were going to function that way. And we learned pretty quick from a sales standpoint. Our product standpoint is that we had to do everything remote. You got to be able to make sure that you can do it remotely, and it was a great test for the company. But we pulled it off, right? And we had to move quick. And look, some people didn't make that journey. Some people said, "Hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make 100 calls a day. It's not who I am. I'm a relationship seller, and that's fine." But things had to change during COVID, and I think they still are that way in somewhat. That again, value in your solution matters. Be able to articulate that value, and I think having speed and repetition, as quickly as you can to go through your pipeline, is key, and it can't be as methodical as it once was.
So how have those trends changed the role of the CRO? When you, Randy, and I were selling, we didn't have CROs. VP of Sales was it. So now, as we create this Chief Revenue Officer, how has that role evolved?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's so many tools that you now have at your disposal that you didn't have before. I always say, are you lucky or you're good in sales, right? And how do you know, right? And so there's so many tools now that can help you with that. Because it used to be, you just go out and go on some sales calls with an individual, and you can figure out in a couple of days, is this person lucky or are they good? Now there's a lot of metrics that can help you with that, right? And like I said, there's Salesforce metrics, there's pipeline metrics, there's the gain sites, there's things like that can show you. And so I think our role as CROs have been much more, you can be much more of an operator than you once were before. Still nothing better than getting out in the field, and trust me on that, because I miss it. But I think that's kind of where this role has evolved. And you still need to know, though, somebody can have a great year, but then again, were they lucky or were they good? Did they have a process?
Absolutely. Dick Egan, EMC, used to say the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I say I'd rather be lucky than good, but anyway. Hey, speaking of EMC, I don't know if anybody ever told you or you came across Greg Ambulos, but just sitting here like, geez, I think I'm talking to his twin. So he runs channels, was EMC, now Dell EMC, but I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so
I hope that's a compliment. I don't know.
Great. Yeah. I'd say compliment to both of you. I'll leave it at that. But anyway, time flies when you are having fun. So thanks so much, Sean. Really appreciate it. You've been a fantastic guest. Nour, as always, honor to co-host with you. Thank you very much for Gong for sponsoring this and for being a gold sponsor of Sales Community. Next week, we have episode number 84 and have Henri Richard. He was previously CRO at NetApp, so certainly doing things at a bigger scale. Now he's got his hands in a bunch of different things in terms of boards, investing, but he's also in the sales excellence practice at Gartner. So he'll certainly have some fantastic perspectives. And the title for his session is Selling and Leadership During Tough Economic Times. So not sure if we're allowed to categorize inflation, recession, whatever. But anyway, that'll certainly be a great session as well. So Tucker, thanks so much for your help behind the scenes here. And as always, we get this reposted across all the different social mediums. So if you have friends that missed it, or you want to go back and check it out, certainly feel free. And as always, check out salescommunity.com. So certainly everybody have a great rest of week. Sean, thanks. Nour, thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Randy.
everybody.
Appreciate it.